Hey guys, Michael here. Very excited to be able to do this. I don't do profiles or where I talk about a whole an artist or a band and all that they've done unless I really, really love that that artist, that band, that musician, whatever. And I have been excited about doing this and wanting to do this for a long time, and just hadn't been able to do it. But I get to now. And partly because I've been waiting for one thing to come in the mail. It's here. Yoo-hoo! I am thrilled. So now I'm going to talk. I'm going to do it. And the artist that I'm talking about specifically is one gentleman by the name of Chris Butler. Well, what can I tell you about Chris Butler? Well, you know, I mean, you can look him up and you'll find out plenty. But a few interesting things you might not know about him, aside from the fact that he is very, very intelligent, and may very well be one of the smartest musicians or artists that I know, to be honest. And I have corresponded with him. When I say I know him, I don't mean we're good buddies and hang out all the time. He lives in New Jersey currently and is originally from the Akron, Cleveland area. So that's a good place to start, I guess. First band that he was in is the band Tin Huey. And I think I did show this recently, and I mentioned that I was going to be doing a little thing about him, which I had recently ordered. Tin Huey did not put out a lot. I've got this, and I know that they did put out a single of, they covered I'm a Believer, and that is on there. And I have this by Tin Huey. Tin Huey included two artists that you guys should know. One, Chris Butler, who you should know about, and I'll show you why as we go on. Also, Ralph Carney was in this band. They were out of, Akron, Kent area, Cleveland, Akron, Kent. Those are all very close together, and at one time, I believe Chris's roommate was a drummer from Devo. So yeah, and there is a great video about Akron and how Akron almost became one of those places. There for a very brief while, Akron was like the hottest thing going in music. Anyway, this album is great. Contents dislodged during shipment, and it's the only vinyl record that they put out. I do believe there's a CD of them as well. I think I may be getting confused. Maybe that's the next band I'm going to mention. But I tell you what, I highly recommend this. It's on Warner Brothers. It came out in good God, 79, and is just killer. Now somehow, Stiff Records decided they wanted to do a groovy thing. Oh, and by the way, just an odd little story. I found these both the same day. This near me at $5. That's ridiculous. That album should be more. And this is a first press, and I know it is because this. I'll tell. Well, I might as well go ahead and talk about it. But this tire is a scratch and sniff thing, and it smells like Akron. And if you've ever been to Akron at that time of, you would know that it smelled like, you could smell the burnt rubber smell all over the city. But it has some great bands in here. Jane Eyre and the Belvederes, Tin Huey are on this, Rachel Sweet, the Bizarros, the Waitresses, of course, Rubber City Rebels, who are talked about quite a bit on that documentary about Akron, which I really recommend. Sniper, Idiots Convention, Rachel Sweet, Terraplane, and Chai Pig or Chi Pig. There's also another band, very legendary out of there, called the Numbers Band, whose name was actually a series of numbers, but everyone just called it the Numbers Band. And that's a band I would really love to find anything by. And there is a little bit by them. Rare as hell if you're not from there. If you're from that area, rare. Anywhere else, rare as hell. And there's a kind of a funny story about a lot of this. Somebody at Stiff Records decided, yeah, we're going to do it. And so we're going to do this, and it's going to be groovy. And it is groovy. It's really cool. But the problem is that there really wasn't all that much going on. Not enough to really warrant, this. So here, by the way, are the labels. Which are really cool, I think. And this album is beautiful. It is near mint. At any rate, so these guys, what they did, they just sort of made up bands, and they were all, running back and forth and playing and stuff. And I'm not sure exactly the whole story. I don't know that, and I would hate to get it really wrong, but somehow or another that is connected to the Waitresses coming to be. The Waitresses, as I understand it, was initially Chris was in Tin Huey, and kind of a lark and a joke, and they got this gal, Patty Donahue, to come and sing for them, and a few other people, and next thing you knew, bam, Tin Huey never really made it big. The Waitresses became pretty much a big thing, and they have a pretty limited discography as well. However, all of it, what is it called? Is it called Just Desserts? I think. That just recently, all of their material, including some live stuff, and there is a live CD by this band, I'm sure, that I don't have for now, but but of course, I think many people are familiar with this, and people are familiar with the Waitresses, if nothing else, because of those stupid Whatever Happened To and One Hit Wonders shows. And a lot of people think that the Waitresses were just a one-hit wonder. But, I Know What Boys Like. Well, that's bullshit. They were much, much more than that. Look at the band. Look at Patty there on the front. Isn't she gorgeous? She died, sadly. I'm very sad to say that. But this is a great album, and I'm ultra thrilled to have it. This is a first press, and it's on Polydor, and which it was put out on Z Records, Polydor, Polygram. It's one of those. God, there's a million different corporations all getting their fingers in it. It's a great album, and this album alone immediately underscores how this band is so much more than just a one-hit wonder band and then that one song, although that's a brilliant song. And most of the songs are written, I believe, by Chris. I'm not seeing, or Chris and Patty. All songs by Chris Butler. Okay. Yeah, they're written by Chris Butler, and they're smart stuff, and great music. I mean, just great musician. And I will say this too: if somebody ever in my life, somebody said, "Oh, well, what's '80s rock? What is that new wave thing?" What would you say is like the most typical or that's not the right word. There's a word. It's on the tip of my tongue. If it pops in my head, but typical isn't really the word I'm looking for. But that song that most exemplifies new wave '80s, I would have to say, I Know What Boys Like. I mean, my God, minimalistic, sort of arch, humor and, just really great. Also, incidentally, on this, aside from the band, which was Patty Donahue, Ariel Warner, Mars Williams, David Hofstra, Billy Fica, Dan Clayman, and Chris Butler, there were other people. Tracy Wormworth, Working Girl, played bass on Working Girl. Don Christensen played drums on a song. Don Christensen and Chris Butler did tapes on the song Quit. And what I'm really trying to get to is Ralph Carney plays sax on Boys Like and harmonica and sax on No Guilt. And Ralph Carney, I mentioned him earlier with Tin Huey, and Ralph Carney was initially, I think, a member of the band, early. If you don't know his name, think of Tom Waits, for example, with whom he has recorded many albums. He plays with Tom Waits a lot, and a lot of other things. He's a great saxophone player. Great harmonica player, too, by the way, and I know great harmonica playing. I played harmonica for years myself. Okay, now I also have the 12-inch EP or mini album. I Could Rule the World If Only I Had the Parts. I love this album. It's great, and when it was sold to me, I think they said it was a VG, but it's near mint. These are all near mint copies. I'm just thrilled to have them. Got the lyrics and stuff printed on the back. Beautiful picture of the band. More Waitresses. This album has the song Christmas Wrapping, which is a perpetual thing. Every year, Chris does a little contest, and the first person to hear it played on the air or in a store or something, he donates $100 to a charity in that person's name. A few other things while we're here that you might not know about Chris. Interesting little known facts. He owned, or maybe still owns, I don't know. I know it was on the market, and I don't know if he sold it yet. When he was flush with cash, all this stuff was going on, and he was still living in the Cleveland area. Suburbs, Akron, Cleveland, blah, blah. He started looking for a house. He thought, and he'd been collecting mid-century modern stuff, which he loves, and he collects that stuff. And I've seen pictures of his studio in Hoboken. Is he in Hoboken? In New Jersey. Maybe Jersey, I don't know. But at any rate, and he still has a lot of stuff. We've talked about that stuff a few times. Corresponded about mid-century modern, and he loves that piece that I show. Somewhere along the line, I show a picture of a chair thing, and I had showed him a photo of that. Anyway, he found this house, and he loved it in the suburbs of Cleveland, and he just loved it. It was a perfect house with this beautiful sloping lawn and woods, out behind the house, lawn sloping down toward a creek and woods, and just perfect mid-century modern house. He thought, my God, this is great, and it was a great price. And he thought about it, and he was like, yeah, and he called the realtor and told the realtor, I want to make an offer. And the realtor said, well, now there's one more thing I forgot to mention, but I really think I ought to tell you. I better tell you this. This is the childhood home of Jeffrey Dahmer. And this is the home where, when Jeffrey's parents had split up, and Jeffrey was living in the house by himself at that time, by the way, where he killed his first and dismembered his first victim. And Chris bought it anyway. And I mean, is that really any weirder than Jimmy Page living in, that witchcraft guy? What's his name? or any number of other, strange things. Final album, and the one that I have been waiting to arrive in the mail to do, by The Waitresses, The Waitresses Bruisology. And I hate to admit this, it includes Make the Weather, Bruisology, and Thinking About Sex Again. God, I am embarrassed to admit that I do not, I'm not familiar with it. I haven't yet played it. I've looked at it. I see it's a gold stamp promo, and it came out in 1982. It was their last album, Patty Donahue, and in fact, I think they had split once before. There had been some differences, artistic differences, so to speak, and then they got back together. If I remember my story right, the way it went. And this album was a result of that. Patty Donahue was a wonderful artist, and here again, I'm not sure if it says who wrote everything. Is this all by Chris? I'm not sure, but it is a first press on, appropriately enough, bruisey purple vinyl. So super thrilled to have this. That, for most people, I think they think, okay, that's the end of Chris Butler. He's never done anything since. And that's why I'm making a whole video about Chris, because that ain't true. First of all, you may not know it, but Chris holds the record for the world's longest pop song. Now, I know the Flaming Lips did a thing that went on for like 24 hours, but it was not a single song. This is one song, and it continues to expand, and on his website, you can find it if you look up Future Fossil Records, or you can also find it if you just Google the name of the song, which is The Devil Glitch. This is a 17-track album. Track 1 is the short version at 5 minutes and 3 seconds. Tracks 2 through 17 is the long version, which at the time this was pressed and released, that Chris did this on Future Fossil Music is his label. It was 68 minutes and 53 seconds long. It's now over 3 hours long, and it is continuing to be added to. Any of you who are musicians, I really would be so pleased if, because of hearing about this, one of you went and got on there. You can find all the lyrics to the thing, and you'll get the music. You know, just being able to hear it. And you can stream all 3 hours and something on the site. What he wants is people to bring more lyrics to it, but still use the music. Your arrangement. There's a chamber quartet, a string quartet section of it, and a lot of other people. Lots of people. Mick Hargraves has added some stuff to it, I know. Beautiful. He's a great guy too, and a really good musician, and but I'll let it go. And a lot of other people. Chris Butler also, incidentally, has done some collaboration with R. Stevie Moore, played on some R. Stevie Moore things, done stuff with Lane Steinberg and all. He knows all those people. But Chris is, in and of himself, just an incredibly amazing guy. And by the way, another little known fact, he said one time that he should be given a special award from the Emmys for having written I Know What Boys Like, because everybody who has ever covered that song, the band has immediately after covering it has split up. One person who covered it ended up in prison. And so he says it's like he has single-handedly contributed to the cleansing the gene pool in pop music. I don't even remember who else covered it. I know the Spice Girls did. So anyway, and I do have a second copy of this, and I'll tell you what. First musician. See, this is silly because I'm pretty damn sure that if you contribute something to it, Chris is going to send you a copy. But I was going to say the first musician to do something and contribute it, I will send you this. Maybe I'll do something else. I want somebody else to have this at some time, and I've just never been able to decide how to do that. But that's not all. That's not all. Chris is witty, hilarious man at times. And I'm going to tell you this, and I will put a link so that you can go to Future Fossil Music on SoundCloud, where he has been doing some amazing stories. He is a storyteller. And when I say he's a storyteller, I mean he literally, and he's really focused on that. He does, he's involved with this, I can't remember what it's called, but I wish I could remember, where he does tell stories, but he's done several, but then at any rate, next album, solo album on Future Fossil Music, The Museum of Me, Chris Butler. What is it? Well, these are his compositions, and but they are all recorded, and in no way are they retro or anything like that as far as the music goes, but they are recorded on historic recording devices. Everything from an Edison wax cylinder recording device, lathes, direct to lathe, a wire recorder, kind of like tape, but they used to use wire instead. I don't really know how all that worked. Rolling Stones mobile recording thing. Wire songs were recorded on a Webster's cut. Well, I'll go on to that. Vinyl cut on a special Newman lathe. And there are figures of all these things. It's really cool. A lot of information. The songs themselves are, by the way, absolutely great. There's a picture of Chris at the time. This came out in, there's a date on here somewhere because I know I'm pretty sure I ordered these all chronologically, so surely I did this one too. 2003. I'm out of chronology here. Somehow I think this next album is actually comes before that. I Feel a Bit Normal Today, 1997. Yeah, see, I got it out of order. But this is 1996. I Feel a Bit Normal. And this is a great... Chris is very political at times. Social commentary and criticism in his music, which, I mean, you hear that right away in The Waitresses, you know. And Tin Huey, as far as that goes. He's just incredible. And these are all written, performed, and recorded by Chris Butler, with some people, doing, contributing, but most of it is all strictly Chris playing everything and doing everything. Great musician. The guy plays drums, by the way, in a band called Purple Kniff. That's how I'm... Purple? I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's spelled purple, as you would spell it, K''NIF. And they do kind of this surf stuff. And he plays drums with that. But he does a lot of other stuff. He recently did a thing in New York, and he's done this before with a man, and I regret that I don't know all this stuff, but the man invents these instruments that are really works of art in and of themselves and are very interactive. But then they will do performances with them at the gallery where they're shown. Really, really cool stuff. Okay, this album. Oh, before I go any further, I should show these. Volume 1, Chris Butler, The Wilderness Years. These came out in 1995, actually. So they actually predate the all this other stuff. But this particular album, but these are included in the Museum of Me. This particular album, this is called The Wilderness Years, Volume 1. And the songs are A Hole in the Sky and Davy's Sister's Home from College. The sleeves are kind of those fold-out sort of things. They're not really exactly sleeves. They open up like this, and then there's a generic sleeve inside with the lyrics and stuff in them. And these songs were recorded without electricity or microphones on the 100-year-old wax cylinders using a hand-cranked Edison spring motor photograph circa 1898. The songs are in no way attempting to sound like songs from 1898. But I think it's just awesome. And the kind of guy, he's one of those guys. And he is a bit of a nerd about that kind of thing, maybe. He loves this sort of stuff. And we've talked about that and how he used to be collecting and do picking. Pickers are people who buy things basically to resell. Hit garage sales and stuff. And when he would be out on the road and stuff. This is The Wilderness Years Volume 2. And these were recorded on a Webster Chicago model 180-1 wire recorder circa 1946 through 49 using World War II Navy surplus stainless steel wire type W-174 consumer wire and period crystal microphones. And I need to get back to him on that because I think this is the one. Yes, it says the half-erased shadow talking behind working man's beer dates from the Korean War when a northeastern Ohio family sat down at a kitchen table to play cards on a Saturday night and someone pushed record. Neighbors stroll in to play a few hands. A serviceman's son, home on leave, describes his grim, unmatched light tour of duty. Kids sing hymns and country and western songs, and everyone tries to get the baby to say "mama" into the mic. I'm going to ask him if he, he says send me a C90 and I'll dub a copy for you. I thought somewhere he said that he would also do it on a CD. But these are so old, he may not have it anymore. Anyway, the songs, The Man in the Racer Suit, killer songs. And The Bottom of a Working Man's Beer. Those are the songs, lyrics in here, and labels. This is side one side of the label, the other side here, caution, a tight kink or loop, showing how to splice wire tape in wire recordings. Now, volumes 1 and 3, and he mentions on the back of this one that look for volume 4. Volume 4 has never come out. I wish it would. I wish everyone, I would love to see these all come out. And there is no volume 2. I asked him about that, and he said, well, it was so long between putting them out. When did this one come out? Is there a date on it? I don't see. No, they're all copyrighted in 1995, but it took him so long between this one coming out and this one coming out that he just called it volume 3. And then we kind of cracked a joke about how, that makes volume 2 extremely rare and very valuable, and kind of pulling a little prank there. Okay, now, another album. Kilo Pop. Un Petit Goutier. The Best of Kilo Pop. This came out in 2001 on Future Fossil Records, and is another one of his I mentioned at one time about how Camper Van Beethoven are pranksters. This guy's a prankster too. And this is hilarious. I love this record, by the way. It's really cool. It says, Future Fossil Records is proud to present Kilo Pop, Europe's second best pop band and our first foreign licensing release. Although virtually unknown in the USA, Ferk and Trinka Zink have been consistent chart toppers in the EU for over 3 decades. Well, there wasn't even an EU for 3 decades at that time. First clue. As well as furious experimenters who stretch pop's parameters in every conceivable direction. As Ferk says, why shouldn't the definition of pop include a Shag song, Who Are Parents, which is covered on this, or a Raymond Scott tune, Coming Back Down to Earth, also here. We aren't too concerned with what pop is, but rather what pop could and should be. Is America ready for Kilo Pop? We think so. Enjoy. Chris Butler. Well, the truth is, it's Chris Butler. And I'm trying to find who is, great little lyric notes, all of it just made up. Sure wish that he wasn't here is song number 1. Kilo Pop's first hit, reaching number 7 in the all Euro chart in 1966. I was just 15 years old, yet had seen a lot of the world already. All the girls I know were typical teenagers concerned with dates, their reputations, clothes, hair. But my interests were a little more experimental, and so on. Somewhere on here it does say, oh, by the way, Kilo Pop uses and endorses LU Biscuits. Oh my God, I love it. And I love it when people do this kind of a thing. It's half joke, but great music. You know, somewhere on here it does say who the woman is who sings. Carla Murray does the lead vocals, except Chris Butler on Gonna Go. All noises are by Chris Butler, except where noted. And there are some guests in here and there. But great album. All of these, by the way, I think you can still get through Future Fossil Music. And so I will put a link down below. I'm not shilling for these guys, by the way. When I do that because I love this stuff and I love these guys and I want you to hear them and love them too. That's why I do this. No other reason. And this is why I wanted to do this to begin with. Although it's been, good God, it seems like a month since I first found out. This is being reissued with a new cover featuring the picture of Chris and some of the stuff from his student ID at Kent State when he was a student at Kent State. The album is titled Easy Life, and this album came out in 2006. Like I said, he's reissuing it with a different cover, and it will be available there. All songs were published and copyrighted on 2001. Did I say 2006? 2001, excuse me. And it's great. He begins with a little story about pigeons, then and this pigeon that will not fly outside of his window, and it's hatched, and mom and dad feed it, and they just try to get and this pigeon just ain't flying, ain't gonna grow up. Ain't going to go out there into the big world. And this album is essentially about the loss of innocence and the first really, when you realize that the world is not what, as a younger person, you might believe. And he goes into his storytelling. I mentioned that he's a storyteller. And in this one, he does a great bit of storytelling. There's also, as I recall, a really great one in here. Is that, I'm trying to remember which song it is, where he talks about, no, it's not in there, but at any rate, I don't see the times listed, so I can't tell you which song it was. But there's a story in this one too. But this one, the first time I heard it, it really almost broke my heart. It made me laugh, and then 30 seconds later, I almost started to cry. Easy Life, great song. And he has other people playing with him on throughout this. Millions and Millions, which is a song kind of about, hey, we're just millions and millions of people are going to get involved and stuff. And a lot of this is about, it begins where he's talking about, and I'm trying to remember the date exactly, but it was like right before when Nixon began bombing in Cambodia, and then Kent State demonstrations and riots, so-called. Well, it did turn into a riot. Broke out, which ended, of course, with the death of 4 students at the hands of overzealous, and there's still a lot of unanswered questions and investigation, and Chris talks about that every year into exactly what really did happen, that the National Guard fired on these students on the campus grounds. Hey Stranger, red drinks, your life stinks. Really cool song, Box of Noise. It all goes on. And then Easy Life redo. And then the song Beggar's Bullets, which he recorded in 1989 at his house in Centerport, New York, with the Tascam 244 for the 20th anniversary of the murders of 4 students at Kent State University. There's a censored and an uncensored version, and in it he talks about a lot of things. Somebody once asked me, he said, well, have you ever heard the story about the blue guitar? And I was like, well, that's this story. There's a very famous photograph of one of the students lying dead and a girl over him crying. That was a very good friend of Chris's who was lying there dead. And if you really want to hear the story, go hear the story. It also involves a trip to Cleveland to see the Grateful Dead, and a lot of other things. But it concludes with that. And he makes me feel it so deeply. He feels it much more deeply than I could ever feel it. Not to say that this is a bummer album. It is not a bummer album. It is a great album. Yeah, it's got its acerbic side. Chris has an acerbic side. Yeah, it's right on Kent, Ohio, Thursday, April 30th, 1970. There are no accidents. It's a subtitle on it. That's it. That's all I've got to say. Chris, if you see this, man, I think you are just an amazing human being. And thank you so much for such great music. More people need to know and hear this music, and bring him out of the semi-obscurity that he is right now. Or that on the other hand, maybe he kind of likes it that way. I don't know. He's certainly free to do things he wants to do. It's just that it'd be cool if more people were listening to it too. Hey, I've talked a long time on this one. I hope you've had the patience to sit through it, and I hope it's maybe opened you up to maybe investigating a little bit more of what's about here. I'll put those links down below for this. Have a great day. It is always all about the music.